Psalm chapter 151 is the name given to a short psalm that is found in most copies of the Septuagint but not in the Masoretic text of the Hebrew Bible. The title given to this psalm in the Septuagint indicates that it is supernumerary, and no number is affixed to it. This psalm is ascribed to David and is outside the number, when he slew Goliath in single combat. It is also included in some manuscripts of the Peshitta. The Eastern Orthodox Church as well as the Armenian Apostolic Church and the Armenian Catholic Church accept Psalm chapter 151 as canonical. Roman Catholics, Protestants, and most Jews consider it apocryphal. However, it is found in an appendix in some Catholic Bibles, such as certain editions of the Latin Vulgate, as well as in some ecumenical translations, such as the New Revised Standard Version. Dead Sea Scrolls discovery. Although for many years scholars believed that Psalm chapter 151 might have been an original Greek composition and that there is no evidence that Psalm chapter 151 ever existed in Hebrew, we now know from the Dead Sea Scrolls that this psalm did in fact exist in Hebrew and was a part of the Psalter used by the Qumran community. Psalm chapter 151 appears along with a number of canonical and non-canonical psalms in the Dead Sea Scroll 11 QPs, a 1st century AD scroll discovered in 1956. The Editio Princeps of this manuscript was first published in 1963 by J. A. Sanders. This scroll contains two short Hebrew psalms which scholars now agree served as the basis for Psalm chapter 151. One of these Hebrew psalms, known as Psalm 151a, is reflected in verses 1 to 5 of the Greek Psalm chapter 151, while verses 6 onward are derived from the other Hebrew psalm, known as Psalm 151b. The composer has brought the two Hebrew psalms together in a manner that significantly changes their meaning and structure, but the influence of the Hebrew originals is still readily apparent. In some ways the Greek version of Psalm chapter 151 does not seem to make good sense, and the Hebrew text provides a basis for a better understanding of what transpired in the creation of the Greek version. In comparison to the Hebrew text, Sanders regards the Greek text of this psalm to be in places desiccated, meaningless, truncated, ridiculous, absurd, jumbled, and disappointingly different. All this the result of its having been made from a truncated amalgamation of the two Hebrew psalms. On details of translation, structure, and meaning of this psalm see especially the works of Skehan, Brownlee, Carmignac, Strugnell, Rabinovitz, DuPont, Summer, and Flint. Content. The title of the psalm states that it was written by David after his battle with Goliath. As it stands in the Greek text in this psalm, David rejoices that God favors him and hears his prayers and worship. David states that he was the least of his brothers, and yet God chose him to be anointed king. It goes on to commemorate how David cut off Goliath's head with the Philistines' own sword, and thereby removed Israel's disgrace. The psalm assumes familiarity with and draws ideas and phraseology from elsewhere in the Bible. Armenian liturgy. Psalm chapter 151 is recited each day at Matins in the Armenian Church in a sequence of biblical poetic material which includes canticles from the Old and New Testaments. Psalms 51, 148 to 150, and 113. The Armenian version of Psalm chapter 151 is close to the Septuagint, with some variation, where verse 2 in Greek reads Alpha Chi Epsilon Rho Epsilon Sigma Mu Omicron Epsilon Pi Omicron Iota Eta Sigma Alpha Nu Rho Gamma Alpha Nu Omicron Delta Alpha Kappa Tau Epsilon Lambda Omicron Iota Mu Omicron Epsilon Rho Omicron Sigma Alpha Nu Psi Alpha Lambda Tau Eta Rho Iota Omicron Nu. My hands made an instrument. My fingers fashioned the lyre. The Armenian has My hands made the lyres, and my fingers fashioned the instrument of blessing. A second notable departure of the Armenian is verse 6. The Greek has kappa alpha pi iota kappa alpha tau eta rho alpha sigma alpha tau omicron mu epsilon nu tau omicron sigma epsilon delta omicron lambda omicron iota sigma alpha tau omicron, and he cursed me through his idols. The Armenian reads, and I cursed his idols. Cultural influence. At the beginning of his first address to his Council of State, Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia recited this psalm in total. The TV show, Touched by an Angel, Season 5, Episode 9 is titled, Psalm Chapter 151, with a song sung by Winona Judd called, Testify to Love. In the episode she composes the song for her dying son. In 1993, Petterio TVOs composed Psalm Chapter 151 in memoriam Frank Zappa, for solo or for percussionists. Bibliography. Sweet, Henry Barclay, An Introduction to the Old Testament in Greek, Cambridge University Press.